students. Okay, so today we're going to use our papers that we made last time, our texture rubbings. If you don't have any texture rubbings, check out the last video and you're going to want to make some before you continue on to this art project because we're using these as a pretty important material for our next project. So we're going to use these the same way that we use painted paper when we're doing collage in our art room, but because a lot of us probably don't have paint at home because it's really messy, we're going to do it with these texture rubbings. So if you don't remember, collage is when you cut papers into shapes and you make pictures with those shapes. So if you were going to do a collage house, you would probably cut a square for the house and a triangle for the top and put it together, and then to make it look more like a house, we want to add details like doors and windows and chimneys are really good details for houses. So we're going to do the same thing with these, and if you guys want some ideas for your content or some inspiration, I'm going to have an Eric Carle book posted on the resources page, and we actually talked about Eric Carle the last time we did a texture project, because when we did our seahorse project, the book that we listened to, that was Mr. Seahorse, that's also an Eric Carle book, and he made so many children's books. And when he illustrates them, he uses all paper that he's painted and then he cuts them into the different shapes to make all of his really cool pictures. So he's a great example to look at if you're looking for ideas with collage. So what you guys are going to need for this project is you're going to need some different colored papers. And you're going to want a pencil, because I like to use a pencil to draw on the back of the paper so that I can cut out my shapes, and it's a lot easier if you draw it first and then cut them out. You're going to need scissors for cutting, and then you're going to need some glue for gluing things together. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pick one of these papers that's going to be my background paper. I think I'm going to do this blue one because that way it can kind of be the sky. And the book that I'm putting on the resources page is a reading of Eric Carle's book, Draw Me a Star. It's one of my favorite books, and I usually do a first grade art lesson. So if you have been a first grader at Moss, you might recognize it from past years. And it's about an artist, and he makes kind of a whole world with all of these different things in it. So I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna cut out some stars and maybe a house and some animals or plants. You guys can do whatever you want for this project. I'm not going to tell you what to make, but I do want you to practice with collage, because collage is a really fun art form that just takes a bit of practice to get good at. So just like with painting, when you use collage, you want to be doing your bigger shapes first and then your smaller shapes second. So you don't want to do all of your little details first, because that's going to make it a lot harder to go back and do your bigger things. So for big shapes, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some of this green paper to kind of make a hill so that my setting has ground to be built on. So I'm just going to glue this on right here, and then I'm going to make a barn instead of a house. So I'm going to use this red and orange paper. And just like we said, when you are cutting collage shapes, you want to think about what, when you're cutting objects out of collage, you want to think of what shapes make them. So for my barn, I'm going to stick this underneath here. I'm going to use a rectangle, and let's see, to make it look more like a barn, I think I'm gonna make it smaller. So I'm gonna go like this and make it a little bit smaller. And then I am going to cut this so that it's more of a barn shape instead of a house shape. So instead of having just a triangle, it's gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4 sides, because that makes it look more like a barn. So I'm gonna glue that on. And if you're trying to cut out something that's hard to cut out, you can always draw it first. So say like I'm gonna put some stars in my sky, I'm gonna use this color paper for my stars. instead of just cutting out my stars, that might be kind of hard, I'm gonna draw them first. And remember, a trick that we use when we are, I'm gonna cut out some different types. A trick that we use when we are cutting out things for collage is you don't want to draw things in the middle of your paper, because if you cut things out from the edges and work into the middle, you'll be able to get a lot more shapes and designs out of your paper than if you start cutting it out of the middle. Another trick you can do is I can just cut this little strip off that I've made of stars. And then with something like stars, if you cut like this, go from the outside to the inside and just spin your paper around, that can be easier than doing. So I'm gonna cut this off. That can be a lot easier than going around if you're having a hard time going around. You just start from the outside and cut to the middle. I'm gonna cut this guy totally off. So like now I have this star I'm gonna put in the sky. So I'm gonna put this on time lapse so that you guys can watch me just do this really fast. But yeah, I'm gonna make maybe some trees, I'm gonna do more stars, maybe I'll put an animal in it, we'll see what I come up with. Okay, scholars, so I have not glued any of this down yet, because I actually, when I'm doing collage, I personally really like to just lay things out where I want them to go. And then once I know that I have everything where I want it to be, I'll go back and glue down then. So that's just how I like to do it. You can do whichever way you like. If you'd rather glue it down as you go because you don't want it moving around, you can also do that too. Notice that I did my big shapes first and then I put my little shapes on top of my big shapes. That's really important because you want to do it that way, or else it'll take you a while because you'll have to move things around a lot. And yeah, I ended up doing a barn and a bird and some flowers, and you guys can do whatever you want. So think of what maybe your favorite animal is, or your favorite time of day, or your favorite season, and think of different shapes that you can cut out to make a picture of your thing. I can't wait to see them.